Droughts and manufactured famine. More than 3 blind mice. White farmers retaliate. Reparations update. Sounds like the weekend wrap-up. Let's get into it. Hello, my people. It's your Negro with aptitude and host of the Blackboard, Mickee Lee. As always, I'm hoping you have had a fabulous weekend and are getting ready for an even more wonderful week ahead. With the head-spinning headlines every single day, it's hard to keep track of what you should know and what you should let go. So we have picked 4 of the top stories we think you need to keep an eye on. As you may have heard, we're in the midst of a severe drought here in California, but does that necessarily have to mean famine? There are more than just 3 blind mice wreaking havoc in Australia. What does that mean for the rest of the world? President Joe Biden wanted to relieve some of the debt that black farmers and other people of color, quote unquote, people of color faced. But all that was brought to a screeching halt by one white farmer and one white federal judge. Hispanic federal judge. Then we have our reparations update. Since the passage of Juneteenth as a federal holiday just a week ago, there's even been more traction and more talk about reparations. But you know what, black folks? We better make sure what's being proposed is how we want to be repaired. After facing devastating wildfires, years of droughts, Australia is now facing a plague of a different kind, a furry kind. There are millions and millions, hundreds of millions, possibly billions of mice that are eating up crops. They are causing infrastructure problems, both to residences, commercial buildings, and other types of buildings. And they don't seem any signs of going away. The issue is that after years of devastating droughts followed by wildfires, the crops in Australia finally were experiencing a bumper crop brought on by floods. However, the mix of the bumper crops and the moist conditions have created a tsunami, no pun intended, but a perfect condition for the rodents to grow exponentially. The problem here is that you can't tell them where to stay. They're all over the place. As a result, many of Australia's crops are being destroyed in an effort to push back the plague of the mice. I mentioned this story to you because Australia had been a large exporter of grain. As a result of the last few years, weather conditions, and now this furry plague, they will not be able to export, and they already had an issue with the availability of rice. So do keep your eye on Australia, because as conditions worsen around the globe, the just-in-time system that has been set up to deliver food and other goods has already been stressed due to the pandemic and due to cargo problems such as the one in the Suez Canal earlier this year. And this means there's going to be global shortage of many things. It's time for you to take seriously growing your own food. Australia isn't the only place that's facing problems regarding the crops. We are facing a huge potential crop loss here in the state of California. As many of you may know, we are going on multiple years of severe droughts. And unfortunately, our water management systems and the state really hasn't called it like it is. A few years ago, they called for something of a light recycling of water and preservation of water, but in general, they really haven't brought enough notice to this issue. As a result, they are now threatening to shut off water all across the state. But who are they threatening to shut off water to? In addition to major municipalities and water management systems like the East Bay Area Utility, what we call district, which is we call East Bay Mud, they also are, more importantly, planning on shutting off water or threatening to shut off water to the farmers. As a result, millions and millions and millions of acres of land are either lying fallow, which means they were not planted and will not be planted because of fear of no water to help the crops grow, or they are being destroyed, meaning they already were planted, and now that the threat of water, shutting off the water, or the implementation of fines for getting water has already begun, the farmers are finding it less expensive to destroy the crop. Now, this does not just have to do with plant agriculture. The threat is also for animal agriculture. California is a very large beef producing, pork producing, and other types of animal agriculture state. And if you don't have water for the plants, then you don't have water for the animals, either through directly drinking the water or the water to grow the feed to keep them alive until they are processed. So this is something monumental, but what I want you to understand is that it is yet one additional strategy, a very large strategy in a coordinated piece to bring about Agenda 2030. If you're not familiar with Agenda 2030, I really suggest you start looking it up, and I suggest you start opening your eyes. Everything that is called a conspiracy theory really is not. So keep an eye on California, and also keep an eye on your local supermarket as you start to see less and less things available. Again, it's time to take serious growing your own food. In an attempt to ease some of the stress and losses that were incurred by disadvantaged farmers, President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan included approximately $4 billion that was slated to go to disadvantaged farmers. Now, the problem here, first of all, is that it has widely been reported in the news as going to black farmers. That is absolutely untrue. As you are well aware, there is nothing in the United States that is going to go specifically to black people, except for maybe beatdowns from the cops. In any event, this $4 billion was slated to go to disadvantaged farmers. That included those from indigenous nations. It also included Hispanics. It was only about 25% of qualifying farmers were actually black. But because it was touted in the media as going to black farmers, you could be sure that white farmers were going to retaliate, and so they did. The $4 billion that was slated to go to these disadvantaged farmers, primarily for debt relief, but also for grants, training, and education, has been brought to a sudden and almost surely permanent halt by U.S. District Judge Marcia Morales Howard, who argued that Congress must heed its obligation to do away with governmentally imposed discrimination based on race. And why did she come up with this? Because of one of two major cases that are being seen right now. But this particular one was brought by a white farmer from Wisconsin who is claiming that, a white farmer from Wisconsin who is claiming that he was not able to qualify for the program because he is white. Now, what has not been told, of course, is that white farmers received more than $9 billion from the initial rollouts of economic help while President Trump was still in office. And black farmers and others received less than 1 to 2% of that. What's also not being told is that black farmers in the last 30 to 40 years alone have lost more than 12 million acres of land as a direct result of state, federal, and local municipalities and their policies. So as we can see in this so-called Christian nation, as long as racial discrimination can be used to rob black folks of their homes, their businesses, then their lands, and even their lives, that's not a problem. But any attempt to repair those situations is. And our last story tonight is our weekly reparations update. In the wake of Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday just a week ago, the topic of reparations has achieved more traction and is ever more present in the national discourse. The question is whether what they are proposing in order to repair us is how we actually want to be repaired. So let's take a look, for example, at the Detroit City Council. So they're pushing ahead with a reparations initiative, but I want you to check the fine print. As usual, black folks can't have nothing for ourselves, even though we are the ones who are injured. So currently, what the city of Detroit is looking at is highlights that include the right to live free from discrimination, including people with disability, immigrants, LGBTQRXYZ, and others. Okay? Listen. There are already plenty of laws on the books under the civil rights legislation suites that already address these types of issues. The issue for us is money. The issue for us is land. The issue for us is not anything other than those two things. With money, we can buy education anywhere we want. With money, we can buy homes. With money, we can fund businesses. With money, we can buy whole towns. With money, we can buy ammunition if we need it. With money, we can buy a whole lot of other things. Let's not get it twisted. The issue is not about the BIPOC crap. The issue is not the people of color crap. The issue is not all the rest of these other crappy proposals. Cut the check. Just cut the check. Okay? Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti is heading a coalition of U.S. mayors that are launching a reparations initiative. Now, the details have not been released, and they are not sure how it's going to be paid, but their idea is to launch a pilot program, see how it works out, and then discuss the details from there. This patchwork, piecemeal crap must stop. And you know how it's going to stop? For us to educate ourselves, and for as many of you who got your behinds out there in the street behind George Floyd, and hey, that was a horrible thing, but you also need to be out in force in these various committees and arming yourself with the existing programs that have already been funded for so many other types of people who are not native to this soil. We are native to the United States. Now, there are some people who are going to argue, we're the original. Listen. We know our history well enough, and we also know that this country would have never formed if there hadn't already existed about 160 years worth of slavery prior to the American Revolution. How do you think they got the funding to fight the greatest empire on earth, which at that time was Britain, was England? So let's stop playing here. We want money. And preferably in gold, because the U.S. dollar is about to collapse. We want land. And if anything, educational, we need a technical training about what to do with the land and et cetera, et cetera. But we still have enough black farmers and people in the agricultural trades that are black to teach us. But of course, if other people have other ways of doing things that are better, let us know that too. The point is, stop getting hoodwinked, stop getting sidetracked, stop getting whatever people want to give you. If we're to be repaired, we need to be repaired on our terms, not someone else's. The last thing I want to do tonight on our weekend wrap-up is to remind you to remember your God. A lot of you are still asleep. And let me tell you, the time of trouble has already begun. Every single day, things are moving more rapidly towards the end time. You are not just a human. You are a spirit. You are a spirit that will have an eternal, and that means a forever, ever, yes, a forever, ever destination. It is only in one of two places, heaven or hell. If you will humble yourself before the Lord your God and claim Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, begin your walk with Him, which means more than lip service, but working hand in hand with the Holy Spirit for God to turn you into the type of person He wanted when He made you in the first place. Then you shall be saved. And there are many verses that I'll get into in other series of videos about what you should be praying so that what is to come will pass over you and hopefully your family too. Also, with the jab nation that is going on and the bullies among those who have already taken the jab and who are being coerced and being utilized and brainwashed into trying to push the rest of us in that same direction. You need to understand that the division in families has begun last year in its formal context under the pandemic, and whether or not you should be wearing the mask and whether or not you should be visiting people and so forth and so on. The next phase, of course, is the vaccine. There will be another phase of vaccine jabberwocky pushing, and then ultimately this will usher in, among a number of other things, the mark of the beast. So you should be, if you're awake, you should be aware that what the Bible has prophesied is coming to pass. Now, these things are not God's fault. This is the way I used to think about it. I thought it was things that He was doing. But no, He has watched all of human history and He reported more than 2,000 years ago what would be happening. We are in those times. Remember your God. Give yourself to Him through Jesus Christ and you shall be saved. All right, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you find value in this content, and I certainly hope that you do. I want to take a moment again to welcome our new subscribers. Next up on my production list is what should reparations look like? So look out for that video. It should be coming at you in just a day or two. All right, y'all. Have a great week.